Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know now, because we're in our 24th year, I interview poets and sometimes other writers and artists about their craft, what they're creating now, what they've done in the past, what they might be planning for the future. It's a pretty wide net, so if you have ideas for writers or other artists who might be good for the Writer's Block, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd be glad to get your suggestions. I also want to add that we're very proud of our long record here, and this is a product of cable television and its community connection. You can't get us on Dish, remember that. I'm very happy to say tonight we do have a poet, Deborah Finkelstein, who is a distinguished writer and professor in her own right, and also an editor and organizer of a book that just came out that we're going to be talking about called Like One. I'm going to use her material from Like One to introduce her. She is originally from Syracuse, New York, but went south east for college, Rutgers, and then took an MFA at Goddard. She teaches creative writing right now at North Shore Community College and Endicott College. Recent publications include material in Lummox, Ibbotson Street, Magnolia, and Cradle Songs. She also writes haiku and plays, and in addition to the website that you will see on our program today, she has a website, DeborahFinkelstein.com. Welcome to the Writer's Block, Deborah.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for coming by. And thanks very much for doing Like One. It's a very nice book. I'm going to hold this up so that we can see it and our audience can see it. And they can get it at the Like One website, which they will see in a minute. Tell us what this book is.
This book was designed, we raise money for the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing for the One Fund. It's a collection of uplifting and humorous poems from poets all over the country. A lot of them are from the Boston area, even several from North Shore. We do have poems from all different states, and we wanted to really include the rest of the country in it as well.
So when did this idea first spring? We're recording now in the September,
right?
And the tragedy was in April. So this book came together quickly.
Well, I think, like a lot of people, I felt very helpless after the tragedy, and I think a lot of us did. You know, what can we do to help? And I think it's great to be able to use something that you're involved with in the arts to really help. And I felt like poetry was the right answer. I teach a class called Literature of Disaster at Endicott College, and I dealt with a lot of...
Excuse me, what is it? The
Literature of Disaster.
Literature of Disaster.
Yes, I know
Interesting course.
It's a very depressing course in a way, because we talk about Titanic, Chernobyl, 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, you know, lots of literature about these things. But it's great. The kids actually get very into it. We talk about, we tie it in with science, we tie it in with literature, we tie it in with health and with politics and things like that. So it's a very interesting course, but there's days where it feels very heavy. And
I imagine, yeah.
Of course, right? And so I felt like when I used poetry in that course, it was very beneficial. You could really see the changes in the students from the poetry. And I used other things as well. I would bring in uplifting comics or short plays or a short essay, but the poetry really changed the way the students' moods were. And every so often, that kind of a heavy course, you need a little bit of uplifting moment, a little bit of healing. And it was interesting because it wasn't a literature course, it wasn't a creative writing course. It's a required, it's part of composition, which is a required course at Endicott. Each professor has a different topic. And a lot of these students came in and they're like, I don't like poetry, and you know.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And it was nice to be able to share a poem and really watch the way it changed them. It made me think about that when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, about the effect that had on the students, the effect poetry has on so many of us.
So you were already geared to think in those lines when in April. Right?
Yes, and I did think about that, and I spoke with some other poets, and everyone thought it was a great idea to be involved. People, you know, everyone wanted to help. There was just such a need to change our mourning into something positive. And we went...
Go ahead.
We went with healing poems. We went with poems that were uplifting. We wanted people to feel more healed. You know, a lot of people wanted to send us poems that were about the actual bombing, and we got one that talked about limbs flying and things like this. And I think there is a place for those kinds of poems, and there's a lot of poems about other tragedies that are very descriptive, and there is a need for that somewhere. But at that point in time, in April, we didn't feel like that was the right way to go. There were still people in the hospital, people were still in shock. We had just gone through Watertown, and we wanted to go with something that would help heal the community, and we felt like poetry was the thing that could do that.
So you had an idea to do an anthology of uplifting poetry and sell it and raise money for the One Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just within days of the attack.
It's true. I started writing to poets right away. Well, about 2 weeks afterwards. When you're still in shock, of course. But in May, I started writing to poets, and I contacted a bunch of different people. And of course, word spreads. People forward things and get other people involved. And it was great. We really got a great variety of poets. We have all different ages. We have people in their 80s. We have people in their 20s.
People from the 19th century, people from the 21st century.
It's true, yeah. And we have poet laureates, we have students. We really combined. I thought we covered a good portion of people.
When did this come out then? When was it actually an artifact in print?
July 1st.
July 1st. And you have, I lost the count, you have 40
poets.
40.
36 living poets and the 4 classic poets.
34 classic poets. The classic poets are
Emily Dickinson, William Carlos Williams,
Walt
Whitman, and Robert Frost.
And everybody else is still alive.
Yes.
I want to sample this. I want to come back and ask you more about the process of the book. Our viewers are always interested in that and where they can get it. But I'd like you to read a poem.
Okay.
If you would start with yours.
Sure.
The disco poem, which is, as you say, an uplifting, humorous, healing poem about your mom and dad.
Okay.
Well, maybe about your mom and dad.
Disco. When I was born, everyone was disco dancing, bright colored lights mapping pathways to eyes, pointing fingers to the moon, arching bodies like warriors, spinning like they could change the rotation of the planet. They say this era ended or never existed. A purge of clothing dumped in a truck. College kids sneak it out for 70s parties, wondering why the collars are so wide, necklines so deep, medallions so heavy. I stare at these 70s photos, the odd woman in polyester bell-bottoms, oversized glasses, the strange man in the leisure suit, mullet, and giant mustache, wondering why my baby album has no pictures of my parents.
Very nice. Did you figure that out?
Yeah, it's true. And my parents, I don't know how happy they are with this poem, but but it really is. There's a picture of them in this kind of outfit. And
how did they react to the poem?
I mean, they thought it was funny, but I'm sure it reveals some secret that no one wants these pictures out, right? We all have these pictures. For me, I have 80s pictures that I would rather no one ever see, right? We all have a certain look.
Do your parents still have those clothes around?
I hope not.
I remember bells. I remember them well. Who were you involved with when you put together this anthology, and how did you screen the poetry that came in?
Well, for my own poem, that was the hardest because I feel like how do you choose from your own work? So I had several friends. I sent them several different poems that I thought might work, and I asked them for feedback. I didn't want to just choose one myself. And people said they thought this was the funniest, and they thought it was lighter, and I think they could all relate to it. We all have a secret like this.
Yeah. I remember when I first opened the book, I expected it to be sort of a disaster like.
Right.
I mean, I was really surprised and shocked and kind of joyful to see that it was funny. A lot of good humor, perceptive humor in this book, as your poem illustrates.
Oh, thank you.
So when the poems came in, did you have a committee, or did you pretty much screen them yourself?
A lot of it was myself. The publisher worked with us. Some other poets were involved because some of the poets came directly to me, and some poets forwarded to other poets who shared it with me. So it was a process. A lot of it was myself. I mean, I wanted to have things that were funny. I wanted to have things that were uplifting. We got a lot that wasn't. and I tried to really get quality poems as well. And you want poems that are going to go together, so to feel, it was important to me that the book would have a good flow.
I want our viewers to know that these poems are very often funny. They're very often short. I was going to read, if I could find it quickly, a Robert Frost, "Dust of Snow." I think I'll read because he's not available. This is a good example of a poem that's not light or funny, but kind of magical and brief. "Dust of Snow" by Robert Frost. "The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued." Very nice, brief and to the point. Who in here of the classic poets, I read one, I gave it Frost, do you like best, and why did you choose it, and would you read it?
Sure.
I shouldn't have pulled Frost out. That you can say Frost if you feel like it.
No, I would say I like the Walt Whitman poem the best. Just looking on page, that's When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. But I love all of them.
I'm right on that, 35.
I don't know.
Well, Walt
they're all
Whitman.
really good. You know, it's so hard. I guess I can say that because they're not alive to hear it. I could never tell you the best from the 36 because it always changes. But
That's a good point. This is the cream of the cream of the crop. These are all really standout poems. There's no, well, we'll forget those 3 or 4 pages. They're all very, very, very nicely done, well-chosen poems.
Did you want me to read that
Please,
one, or I could read William
please.
Clark's? Okay. When I heard the learned astronomer. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were arranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I sitting heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon unaccountable I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself, in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in the perfect silence at the stars.
Very nice. And with Walt Whitman, you don't have to worry about paying any royalties.
It's true.
You don't have to any royalties or any copyright complexities. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about the process of actually publishing a book that you have edited. Now you have all the poems, you have the idea, you want to support the One Fund, and you've got the material, you've got a manuscript here. Then what do you do?
Well, we looked into the ways that one can publish a book on their own. We talked with the publishers. We went through, our book's also available at Amazon, so it's on our website, but also through Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at Lulu. I spoke with a lot of different people. I spoke with Ibbotson Press. I'm friends with Doug Holder, who works at Endicott also.
So did you just search publishers online? You went to Google or?
We spoke with a lot of different people. I felt like this community is such a great resource. In Somerville, they have this group called the Bagel Bards, and they meet at Aubon Payne and Davis Square on Saturday mornings, and they all just talk and they share ideas. It's just such a great resource. And I'm really blessed to work at 2 schools that have so many great writers and so many resourceful people. So I just spoke with lots of different people about options. I wrote to friends that weren't poets too. Because fiction writers know this kind of stuff as well.
Sure.
And I asked lots of opinions. We were still debating about the cover. We had lots of different ideas. There were photographs that were submitted. And I had a lot of different ideas for the title. We chose this title because this is a program called Wordle, and we ran the whole manuscript through the computer. And this program, it shows the words that are used the most in the book. That's actually what the largest words are the ones used the most. It takes out words like the, because that would always be what would win. But it takes out the words like the, and otherwise it shows you all the words. And this is really what it looked like. It had the words like one is the largest.
And what is that program again?
It's called Wordle.
Wordle?
Mm-hmm.
Wordall?
Wordle, so like WORDLE.com. It's great. It's a free program. It's used a lot for speeches, and when people are trying to see what they say a lot, for catchphrases.
I know that's used a lot in kind of deconstructionist criticism to see who used these words and why and what are they doing subconsciously? What are they saying subconsciously?
It's true, and I even saw Stephen Colbert, a politician, was using it for a speech, and I know that they used it in marketing. So we used it. We were actually not going to use this as the title initially. I was just trying to see what the most common words were in the book, so I was curious. And the most common words were like one. And it made me think about all these poets coming together and what it really meant to be like one, that people wanted to solve things together, that, because I thought it was really beautiful when the tragedy happened. I feel like here in Boston, the Red Sox, everyone is such a huge fan of them. They hate the Yankees. A lot of the rest of the country hates the Yankees also. And I felt like it was so beautiful in New York that the Yankees put up this sign. It had the Yankee symbol and a heart and then the Red Sox symbol. And it was so moving, after the tragedy. And so many things came together. People that don't usually get along. You saw Republicans and Democrats and different groups of people were really coming together like one. And I felt so strongly when I thought about it. It just seemed like the perfect title. And so we ended up using the Wordle for the title because we felt like it captured the book in that way.
So you find, you contact friends and you get ideas about a publisher. Mm-hmm. And then you contact friends about putting up a website as well? Or get somebody to put it up for you?
I put up the website myself.
Oh, you did?
It's through iWeb, which is a program on Macintosh computers. I had done it before. My own website also was done, that I made it myself. So it's a great program. It's really easy to use.
It's kind of interesting once you get into it.
It's true.
Although I don't know if I'd do it again. So then you have to pay the publisher, and you have to pay for some money for the domain and those kind of details. And then where can we buy the book now? So we want to support this effort. Where can our viewers get the book?
So the easiest place is Amazon.com, but you can get it on our website, like onepoetry.com. There's a website called createspace.com. We are in the process right now of going into bookstores. So I don't have any to announce at this moment, unfortunately, but we are working on getting into different stores.
On your website, I assume if someone buys it through your website, how can I say this nicely? They won't get gouged, or you won't get gouged as much as Amazon likes to gouge.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about Amazon. I think we've enjoyed working with everybody. I mean, it's
very well done, very well done. I sell books through Amazon. I have some movies through Amazon, and they know how to make money. I'll say that. That's perhaps a less biased word than gouge. Could you pick another poem, Deborah Finkelstein, from the book which you edited,
Sure.
Like One? Let me show this again, may I? To Nick, our stage director tonight, our floor director, and our other cameraman is Dick, and Alex on the controls.
I was thinking The Rules of the New Car.
Okay, what page is that, please?
Page 27.
Okay.
It's by Wesley McNair. He's the Poet Laureate of Maine. And he was here last year for the Mass Poetry Festival, which is also this wonderful, wonderful resource here that's every year in Salem. It's just such a great thing for poets. So I feel really lucky to live here with all these resources. The Rules of the New Car. After I got married and became the stepfather of 2 children, just before we had 2 more, I bought it. The bright, blue, sorrowful car that slowly turned to scratches and the flat black spots of gum in the seats, and stains impossible to remove from the floor mats. Never again, I said, as our kids, 4 of them by now, climbed into the new car. This time there will be rules. The first to go was the rule I made for myself about cleaning it once a week. Though why, I shouted at the kids in the rearview mirror, should I have to clean it if they would just remember to fold their hands? 3 years later, it was the same car I had before, except for the dent my wife put in the grill when, ignoring my regulation about snacks, she reached for a bag of chips on her way home from work and hit a tow truck. Oh, the ache I felt for the broken rules, the beautiful car that had been lost, the car that we had now, on soft shocks in the driveway, still unpaid for. Then one day, for no particular reason except that the car was loaded down with wood from the fireplace at my in-laws' camp, and groceries, and sheets, and clothes for the week, my wife in the passenger seat, the dog lightly panting beside the kids in the back, all innocent anticipation, waiting for me to join them. I opened the door to my life.
Very nice. I'm not familiar with Wesley McNair's work, although I heard his name, and I didn't know he was the Poet Laureate of Maine. I knew he was from Maine. Very nicely done. There's a poem in here by Dan Sklar, which I like, and I was going to read, or ask you to read. A woman walks into a bar, page 4,
Okay.
which I like.
A woman walks into a bar. The woman walks down the street quickly, heels clacking on the sidewalk, nervous confidence, the dignity of having a place to go, and comes to the place, pulls open the door with long, swift motions, leaning back, other arm, reaching way out, swinging, a counterbalance, walks in, does not look around, sits at the bar. She orders a drink, even though the bartender knows what it is. These are the moments she loves, the walk to the bar, the door, the bartender knowing what she drinks, waiting for the drink in the warm, dark place. And dark wooden bar with the little lights and glasses and bottles sparkling and clinking of glasses and bottles and ice cubes. The first sip is the best, and they are all good. When the drink comes, she doesn't drink it right away. When the night is through, her back is straighter than before, sort of half almost smile, eyes in the new place. She pushes open the door, and the air hits her face. She goes left and walks half a block, stops, smiles to herself with some of her mouth, turns around, and goes the other way.
Next time you talk to Dan, give him my compliments. Nick just gave me the 5-minute sign already, and I wanted to make sure I got to a couple more general points. You are a poet.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know what you're working on in 30 seconds, and what advice you can give to writers, poets who are watching the Writer's Block.
I'm working on poems, all the time, I think. I also write plays, so I work on both of them. My advice would be, I think the more people read, the better writer they become. I think it's important to write often. Some people say it's important to have a schedule where you write every day. Other people are better when they're inspired. And that's good if inspiration happens a lot. So
Do you write every day?
I
in a
don't.
regular schedule?
I write several times a week.
Is this random times, or is it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 1 you write no matter what?
It's usually in the late mornings during the week. Because I teach in the afternoons. So that's a convenient time.
Life gets in the way, doesn't it?
And if I had to change my schedule with classes, I'd probably do it in the afternoon, I think.
You said reading is important.
I think it really is.
Whom do you read? Poets or novelists, anybody?
Gosh, there's
Playwrights.
Which writers?
Which poets, novelists, playwrights?
For plays, I love Ibsen. I feel like he really captures so much within us. I love Arthur Miller. There's so many. Molière was great, of course. I like David Mamet. I like Wendy Wasserstein. For poets, we're lucky to have so many local people that are great. I love January O'Neill's work. Billy Collins is a lot of fun. A lot of the classic writers are great. Oh gosh, I feel like I'm going to insult someone by not mentioning them. This is
you like
pressure.
Everybody in here.
I do like everyone in here. It's true.
Well,
and a lot of them I knew before. Not new, but I knew of their work. And some of them are brand new to me, which was great because it came from other people, which is nice to have that opportunity.
I guess
I didn't mention Maxine Kumin. I think she's fabulous. And I won't. There's too many people. So.
Well, the classic writers, I assume you love Frost and Whitman, William Carlos Williams, and Emily Dickinson,
yes.
New England lady.
It's true, and I love E.A. Cummings. We couldn't find work of his that was right for this, and also we could get the rights too. There were some people that were more complicated to get. I love Sherman Alexie. I think he's great. And Amiri Baraka and Gwendolyn Brooks, and so many talented people.
Our viewers read all of those people, and then come back.
I think the most important thing is to read something. I even tell my students they should pick out something that really is that they're passionate about, and then also look for recommendations. And I think also to go to events with those poets and to to hear it live is so important. It's, as a novelist, it's good to go to readings, but I think especially poetry and plays, they're meant to be heard out loud.
Good
And
advice. I got the 2-minute signal from Nick about 2 minutes ago. So that's very good advice. Go to see, hear, and additionally read poets if you want to be able to be a poet. I want to thank Deborah Finkelstein for being on the Writer's Block tonight, and I want to thank you for watching us tonight. If you've learned something about Like One, this wonderful anthology that Deborah put together, and the idea of poetry as a healing resource, then the Writer's Block has done its job. Hope to see you again next week on the Writer's Block. Good night.